So this first session is just a brief introduction to the World Wide Web. Now the World Wide Web, that's often abbreviated to WWW, and the bizarre thing about that is that's actually harder to say than World Wide Web. So we call these things acronyms. An acronym, the whole point behind acronyms is they're supposed to be easy to say. But in this instance, it's a weird one because it isn't. It's actually harder to say WWW than it is World Wide Web. So, everyone's used the web nowadays, and obviously for most people that means using it on their mobile devices. There is a question about, how long has the web been around? And, it's relatively recent. So, for example, we could, is it 1971, 1981, 1991, or 2001? And this is only, 20 to 30 years ago. And the answer is 1991. Now, if you actually ask people, what do they think the World Wide Web is? They get terribly confused about the distinction between the World Wide Web and the Internet and all the services that run on the Internet. So we know that the Internet is actually a series of connected computers. And when I say connected, that means there's infrastructure, cabling, wires, remote information being passed across Wi-Fi systems. There are servers, computers, laptops, mobile phones. All of those are actually what the Internet consists of, the actual hardware, if you like, with some software services promoting the Internet. And on top of that, there's obviously a whole variety of different applications that run. So things like browsers, for example, or it could be your mail client, or it could be some sort of instant messaging system. Of course, nowadays, we're very used to the notion of using video and audio streaming over the Internet, on top of the Internet. So what exactly is the World Wide Web? Well, the World Wide Web is a combination of three things. We've got user-generated content. Well, that's basically web pages. We've got the software that enables those web pages to be discovered and published and visible for users when they're surfing on the Internet. And then underlying that, at the bottom end, there's the hardware. And of course, that hardware means the computers, network devices, and all that stuff. So we're going to be focusing on web pages today. And, what is the World Wide Web? Well, for most people, they interpret it to be web pages. And here's a snapshot of the BBC website. There's a whole bunch of different parts to this. We've got text, blocks of text all over the place. We've got images, pictures. We've got hyperlinks. And hyperlinks are the major thing that revolutionised the notion of passing between pages, the idea that you could actually click on the page and you would travel through to another page. Those are called hyperlinks. But what else do we have? Well, there are things like, for example, we could have somewhere where you can enter information, forms. This is an example of a form. If you're familiar with using forms, you use them all the time in things like Facebook, or if you do your shopping on Amazon. And forms consist of things like text boxes where you can enter information and buttons that you can click or you can tap if you're on mobile. And these things are called radio buttons, the notion being that you can only select one of these at a time, like the old-fashioned radio systems where you could actually only push a single button in to select between FM and the other radio frequencies like long wave and medium wave. So how do we create web pages? Well, web pages are actually just text files. So there's a whole different set of tools that you could use to create text files. Notepad, WinEDT, HTMLKit, Notepad++. There is a temptation to think about creating text files in a product like Word. Is the answer. Don't create text files in Word. Word is specifically designed to create Word files. So inside Word files, there's all sorts of hidden formatting. Once you've got those text files, those files that contain that information that makes up the web pages, well, you need somewhere to actually view those. And that typically means something like a browser to actually view. And we're going to be looking at creating some web pages ourselves. So you're going to be checking them inside a browser. And of course, the most popular browser at one point was Internet Explorer, primarily because it was bundled for free in Windows. But nowadays, people are used to using Chrome or Safari if they're on a Mac or on an iPhone. And there are other browsers up there like Firefox, Opera, and the latest browser from Microsoft, which is called Edge, which turns out uses bits of Chrome inside it. Well, what we'll be using Notepad++, which is a free piece of software you can download and install on your laptops at home, but we'll be using it in the lab as well. And you can use any browser you like. Most of you will probably be using Chrome, or if you're on a Mac, you'll probably be using Safari. It's up to you, but don't use Internet Explorer is the key, is the given really, because it's basically very old, it's retired, it doesn't support the latest web standards. So most of you will probably be using Notepad++ and Chrome, I would imagine. So what is a plain text file? Well, a plain text file, it's the most common type of file that actually exists out there. And all web pages are plain text files. And text files, they only contain the characters entered at the keyboard. Now, when I say character, I mean one of the things that is visible on your keyboard in front of you right now, a letter of the alphabet. It could be a number, it could be a special character like an ampersand symbol, something like that. And so a text file just contains those characters, those things that you type in. No extra formatting is added into the document by the piece of software that we're actually using. And as I've indicated, we can produce those in a variety of different editors.